Here we are. I'm Spencer Nix, and I'm joined by my friend Chris Spieler. And this is the first unedited live stream on YouTube for a concept that we've come up with together called Sojourn. We're going to unpack that exactly what it is, what we hope to accomplish by talking here through this medium. But before we do, we don't want to make any assumptions that you know who we are or why you'd want to listen to anything that we say.
Good
So,
idea.
so Chris, why don't you start and tell us, spare us no detail because sometimes it's hard to talk about yourself, but tell us what you're doing professionally, maybe some of your background in the space of health and fitness. I am captive audience for what you've done athletically too. So give us a little bit of color about your perspective on all things health and fitness.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it in a nutshell. I grew up in a
Limit it
you
to
know,
like 30, 40 minutes if you can.
perfect. I think I can work on that. Grew up in a pretty active home, like athletics were a part of what we did, just not forced, but just like part of the culture in our house. And played a ton of sports. I played soccer, I played lacrosse. I even played golf one year, ninth grade, freshman year on the
Dang.
golf team. Yep, I know. What else did I do? I tried in track. I tried the long jump, not good for a small guy. Tried the high jump too, also not great when you're 5'5". But yeah, that was part of just kind of growing up. But the real thing I gravitated to is wrestling because I was small and I couldn't keep up with the big kids out on the field, and wrestling felt really fair because I had other people my size, and that was really cool because I was able to feel like there's a level playing field there. Um, so yeah, I did. I wrestled. I started in first grade actually, and wrestled all the way through college, and that kind of took over my athletic career, and then influenced a ton of my training. Look at this. Look at
Look
that
at this.
handsome
Can
guy
you
up
see
there.
that?
Holy
Look,
cow!
this
Look at
guy
all
knows what he's talking
Whoa,
about.
look at that guy. Well, look at that other guy talking about a sugarfoot stance. That's old school terminology right there.
Look
Man,
at. Can
yeah.
everybody
Oh,
see it
man,
up there?
if you look at the top screen, that's me with frosted tips. There was a time where I had hair. Now go scan over one over, and you see a bald guy, that handsome devil. That's what I look like kinda now. But my goodness, yeah. So wrestling was like my jam, and that influenced a lot of my training as well, throughout the summer months and throughout just college. I really true training became this thing to make you better at wrestling. And for those that aren't familiar, wrestling is really hard,
Mm.
and training for it is also really hard. So I developed a lot of my work ethic and mentality there. And then I got out of college, made it a goal. I wanted to be an All American, but I fell short of that by 2 rounds. My goodness, almost 20 years ago, but I still remember that last match. And Yeah, and then, 4 years later, I stumbled into this thing called CrossFit, and right place, right time, a lot of hard work. With CrossFit, I went to the games 7 times as an individual.
That seems
One
really excessive.
I know, but you know what? Let's just be honest. Let's call it what it is, Spencer. 2 of those years, you just showed up and were like, "Hey, I'm Chris," and put your name on the card and walked in.
You can't
Uh,
fool me, man. You can't fool me with that. I
ah,
remember. I, I remember.
the days, the good old days. Yeah. So I did that. I did masters competition 1 year, and I worked for CrossFit seminar staff for I think 8 years, and I taught. It was over 300 seminars. I helped write the coach. It's the I believe it was called the competitors course then, and now it's like advanced coaching concepts. I helped write the level two, which back then was the coach's prep course, and yeah, if you're lucky enough to take the level 3, I if they haven't changed anything, you might see yours truly as a demo guy in there as well. So oh, and I've owned a gym. Yeah, I forgot about that. Gosh, I've owned a gym
that
for a
one. That one little
yeah,
thing.
that's that one little thing. I've owned a gym for 15 years in April. And yeah, that has been kind of me in a nutshell. So yeah,
And
yeah,
since
a
and
lot.
since CrossFit as a sport, what have you dabbled in? You mentioned it briefly, but you have no shortage of hobbies and things that you're
Oh man.
doing. So just sprinkle a little bit of that
Yeah.
in.
Oh gosh. So like the journey going from competing to not competing, that's a whole other thing, right? But these days, my true just passion is generally anything with two wheels that goes downhill quickly or uphill with the throttle or over jumps. I really love downhill mountain biking. I love dirt jumping. I love dirt biking, even though I'm not that great at it. I love skiing powder. There might not be any better feeling in the world. And I'm really fortunate. That stuff's in my backyard, living in Park City, Utah. So I get to do a lot of that. And I also love experiencing that in different places, traveling around and trying to check that out in different areas. And um, I just love it, man. Riding bikes, there's something special about it. So, yeah.
You know, you're also pretty good on a skateboard. I kind of thought that everything you did, like, is linear and forward. But you're pretty good going to the side. I
I
saw
don't
some of those
know.
videos. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like the dad thing, and I've maybe to the blessing and the curse. I'm not one afraid of a little challenge. I feel like, if I just like wash, I should be able to do that. So I try to be the dad that is not afraid to look like an idiot
Mhm.
and get out there and
Mhm.
show your kids that it's okay to fail.
Mhm.
Which
I
I'm actually
prescribe to
dealing
that
with
as
that
well.
now. Yeah, and I think my elbow is now. I crashed on the skateboard probably like 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks
Mhm.
ago, and my elbow has not been normal, and I think I may have, like, burst my bursa sac because it's kind of
Oh, jeez.
fat and weird. But
Just
hey,
real lo Yeah.
what about you? Because I know that, one of the things I appreciated, you and I got a chance to work seminars together, and dude, I don't wanna toot your own horn, I don't wanna make you feel special, even though you are, but, I loved listening to you lecture. I loved it, and it was partly because I think you're a great communicator, but you brought other knowledge and experience to the method through other things that you were either doing or researched or working with. So give me the rundown because I think some
Thanks
people
for
might
that.
be surprised to this. Yeah, that you maybe didn't grow up with a huge athletic background and that came later in life.
Yeah, my mom, if she watches this, she would say, "No, you were special and great and you were athletic." But the truth is that that's not what was my main focus in high school. Some of that was I was, pre-pubescent until I went to college, but I was just into other things. I did theater and band and, Boy Scouts and stuff like that growing up. And then when I got to college, to make a long story short, I realized that I really needed to make this thing that I was insecure at and bad at a lot better. And so, getting into the science of exercise was something that was really interesting to me. At the same time as I was finishing up college and I was getting in better shape, um, man, the good Lord did give me some capacity and skill that I was able to feel brand new about. When I was in my early 20s, and so I did get to dabble in some different sport, and then academically, I went on to get a master's degree in neuroscience and applied cognition. And so, at the same time, all this cerebral stuff was interesting me. CrossFit came on the scene for me, and the methodology of that was just at such the right place at the right time. And my brother and I, um, yeah, started dabbling in it, and then a trip to Santa Cruz completely changed the trajectory of where I thought my life would go. And so, one of my favorite parts of the fitness in 100 words from CrossFit is to regularly learn and play new sports. And I think some people think that's just like a nice punctuation on that
Yeah.
sentence, but I really took it literally. I thought, well, this is not, this is supposed to be cross training for something else. And so, up in Park Cities, this was 2009, I guess. I tried out for the bobsled team, and that's another story that we can share at another time. But ended up making it, and through a series of really lucky coincidences, I was able to compete for a few years there. As you said, like professionally, as soon as I got into CrossFit, I wanted to also coach and teach others. And so for over 10 years, I was out on the dusty trail, teaching the level ones and level twos, such as yourself. And then my day job, much like you, is to run a strength conditioning facility here in Dallas, Texas. So originally called CrossFit Dallas Central. As of late, we kind of go by CFDC, and maybe we can, at some point, we do need to talk about how our own gyms have evolved. And so maybe that could be a fun diversion to this conversation we've had. And
Yeah.
then to answer the question I answered you, man, as of late, because the sport of CrossFit, I think, captures and enamors us all when we get into this. But when that party's over, it's it's way over. And so,
Yeah.
for me, even being in good shape, and I didn't have the grappling background that you had, so even being a little taller and a little heavier and in good shape, I realized I had this. I remember where I was and when I thought it. I'm not confident that I could defend myself if my life depended on it. And I
What I wait,
conflated. Yeah.
I gotta hear, like, what happened to have you have the epiphany? Like, were you in a hairy situation?
No, not a hairy situation, but to be honest, I wrestled with somebody and they were much smaller than me, and I realized that my fitness meant nothing in that situation.
Yeah.
And the fact that someone's mentality and their skills with that application meant everything. And it was, yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother episode in and of itself. But long story short, I've been into jujitsu, like secretly really into it, not the kind of thing that you want to tell everybody about, but like secretly really into
But
it
I'm
for,
really into it.
yeah, 5, 6 years. And then um
Do you
recently gotten
compete?
to, I have, that's man, yeah. I feel like that's a necessary part of it, but
Uh-huh.
I know also my personality, which you can relate to, is like I can go way overboard
Oh, yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
that. And it's something that I want much like fitness. It's like I want to keep doing this forever. Like I'd like to be the guy that's 60 years old that doesn't have arthritic fingers and can still do it. So I have to like really balance those two things.
Yeah.
um yeah, love backcountry splitboarding and mountain biking and camping and, Lord willing, getting into some dirt biking and
Yes.
whatever whatever you have. So gosh, there's us in a nutshell. If you're still listening, thanks for hanging in there. But it's good to know who you're talking to. And I guess it was last spring, so it's almost a year now. You and I reconnected on the phone, and the conversation took lots of turns from gym ownership to being in the wonderful position to having taught so many seminars and this methodology that we love so much. But we did come up with something we felt was a concern, and that is that there has to be some evolution in this in order for us to continue to do this ourselves, but also to continue to coach others through this long term. Because
Yeah.
15 years ago, it was just a hypothesis that someone could do functional fitness for a really really long time, and now we're actually living it. So
Yeah.
Chris, share some of those things that you said the last time we were talking about this.
Yeah, it's been like and it's funny, I think much like you, I constantly ask myself the question of, no, gosh, like, are we the only people that feel like this, or is it? And I really don't think that's the case, but I think that, yeah, just like you said, 15 years ago, we were all saying, "Can you do this for 15 or 20 years?" And now we're there. And I know for us at Park City Fit, we have people that have been with us. We're fortunate enough to have some of our very first members, and that's 15 years of training. That let alone without any previous background, right? That alone can look vastly different over a 15-year period based off of age. It could be a change of goals. It could be lifestyle. I mean, we've seen people um, come through the gym and run their first mile with us. We've had their families grow up and babysit our kids and graduate from college and start their own families. And this journey is one that I think we need to be giving ourselves some grace to say, hey, just because we love this method over here, right? We can expand upon that. We can broaden that. And it doesn't have to look like everything is for time, for reps, or for load, and that we have to just constantly have this, uber high intensity mentality, performance. And if I'm logging my workouts and my power curve is dropping, I must be doing something wrong. And that's kind of been like ingrained in us, I think, from some of
Hmm.
that thought process in the earlier conversation of, hey, here's what the method is. It's measurable, observable, repeatable, and all this stuff is great, right? It's all valid and valuable. But much like you said, eventually there comes a time, whether we're competitive or not, where there is this tipping point, right? And we have to ask ourselves, is the goal to continue increasing my fitness or my performance worth what I have to sacrifice? Because that comes for everybody. And that might be buckling down our nutrition, higher volume training, different approach to training. And if people don't ask themselves that question and really have the ability to step back and evaluate and say, you know what, that's great for the people that love that. And we support that. That's awesome. That's cool. I was there. But that's just not for me. That's not worth that time and energy and that push. Or um, I think the alternative is that people just continue to kind of go down that road and they sort of get chewed up and spit out. They're
Hmm.
but they love the community, they love the method, what it kind of gave us at the start. And maybe there's this feeling of obligation, right? Like I've got to keep doing it exactly the way that I did from day one, or I'm not really doing it. And I just don't think that's true. And man, we've talked so much about it, and I'm gonna get off on a tangent again, but I really do miss, and this is probably because of my experience, right? I miss this mentality of like true variance. Back in '06, when you'd see people post on the forum, oh man, I tried working out at midnight tonight, just because for the sake I wanted to see how I would feel. I tried, people would even say stuff like, I just ate and I tried working out on a full stomach versus an empty stomach. And it was like a legit thing they were trying because they were a firefighter, a law enforcement officer, and they were
Yeah.
just curious. So
Hmm.
it was less about being really good at fitness and more about this broad exposure to fitness.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some real value to going back to that.
Yeah, man. And I, I how should I say this? I want to say something that I feel is true, but I don't want to come off like a jerk or an all-knowing wizard of CrossFit. But we've pretty much put all the combinations of movements together. Maybe we
Yeah.
can bring back virtual shoveling or like the inverted burpee, and it's like, whoa,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a whole new stimulus. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that the message of force times distance divided by time, it was so concrete that our worlds that are so truly uncontrollable, it felt like we could control everything. And so we
Yeah.
ran with that. And I think that competing in CrossFit and functional fitness is such an easy extension of that because it feels like you're able to check the boxes on things that are really good. Competition is really good.
Yeah.
But it's this weird notion that you're competing to see who the best exerciser is, which has nothing beyond that.
Yeah.
It has nothing beyond that. And so, I think we're talking about a couple of things. The person that doesn't understand what we're talking about has never gotten into that, and they really just want to do it for health and fitness. But yet, from a health and fitness standpoint, it's a very aggressive program. And so, how do you sustain that long term? You and I have, through trial and error, just kind of figured that out for ourselves. And I think that we implement that within our businesses, but it's not inherently obvious what you're supposed to do long term. And then from a competition standpoint, I think personally, we both agree that, man, we're so thankful for the experiences. And hey, don't get it twisted. I competed in the games in
That's right.
2010. Uh, team. Uh,
I don't know if you know.
but it's like, what else is there? What else is out there? And you know, Coach Glassman himself never dreamed that the games would be the focal point of this movement, right? It was supposed to, the thing's called CrossFit because it's supposed to be cross training for something else.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing we're doing. And
Yeah.
that just got like lost somewhere. And I think that,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're at ages where it's like, what's the meaning of life now? What, as fathers and business owners and guys that aren't 20, it's like, what am I supposed to do now? And I think these are conversations that you and I like, and that we want to bring other people into, and that we want to try to continue to have. What were you going to say?
Ye Yeah, and I think, like, hear us out too. Just like you said, sometimes these conversations can be difficult because you don't wanna sound like you, are against things or, um, disagree, but I'm so grateful for the experience that I had competing, like, I that was amazing, and it was awesome, and that was a season of my life, right? And that's a really outstanding time, but I do think that, um people have gotten so focused on that side of it. So if you are into competing, by all means, like fire away, compete, do it because you love it. And that's something that is really outstanding, and can be a great outlet for somebody's fitness journey. But if you're not in that boat, if you're doing this because you love the community, because you love the method, you've seen some results, I think it's really worth asking, saying to yourself, hey, kind of what more is out there? What can I do to have this provide more experiences? Because even me, I know I told you this a few weeks ago. I'm really fortunate. I got to experience CrossFit, I guess you could say, the games and competing in a way that very few people did, right? And I am so grateful and so thankful for the support I had from the community, for those memories, the people that I met, all that outstanding, right? But even now, even to this day, like, every once in a while, if I'm not mindful of what my training is contributing for me outside the gym, I catch myself working out in the gym because 'cause I've got that all or nothing personality, which I
Mm-hmm.
think most people that do this probably do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I catch myself saying, "Wait, what am I doing this for?"
Mm.
Like, I'm doing another couplet or another triplet. It's been over 15 years, not to mention all the training I did before that for wrestling, all
Right.
the time I spent in the weight room before that. I mean, you're talking about I started lifting weights when I was 13. Now I'm
Yeah.
43.
From a training age, you're like a grandpa.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For sure, man. 30 years, right? I'm like old. So it's I just think it's really worth like encouraging people that, hey, we can use some of the tenets and principles of this method and really expand that territory and embrace the value that it brings us. But also, hey, what else do you want out of this fitness thing? How do you define that? And it's not just increased work capacity across broad time and modal domains. It's maybe your ability to experience life outside the gym. I know one of
Yeah.
our missions at Park City Fit is, to we want people to be confident to perform any physical task they want. And I think that comes with a host of things. It could be running a marathon. It could be going to a powerlifting meet, picking up the heavy box in your garage, hanging out with your grandkids, competing in CrossFit. I mean, fill in the blank. But people got to take the time to define what that is for them.
Yeah. And I, even as I listen to you, I think that, the notion or the tenet of increased work capacity across broad time mobile domain, everybody just thinks like, oh well, that just happens in the gym. Like so, I get
Yeah,
in the gym more and more, and it's like that was never the point. And now God, the competitive scene is completely different. Um, Meaning that yeah, I guess there's like local things that you can do, and
sure.
I think that's a cool experience, and there is, man, just even being outside of your own environment and being in there, like, man, there's psychologically we could break down like the merits of that, and good on you. But the problem I have is that I see a lot of people that aren't even doing that. The gate to get into the real thing that we call competition is very narrow. There's a much broader um, avenue for these local things. But if I'm honest, most of the people I see never step foot out of the gym. It's
Yeah.
like you do this exercise for your health. What's your hobby? It's more exercise. So your
Yes.
hobby, so you have the two of the same hobbies, and it's like they're just doing it. They're just doing more volume and more things. And I think, and here's where I don't want to be overly critical. Like I get the man, the allure and how awesome it is to have high skill gymnastic stuff. And when I mean, do you remember when you first just appreciated like everything that you could do and all these things that
Oh,
you could learn? I mean, it was overwhelming. And so
yeah.
I get the enthusiasm of wanting to be in here, more than once a day. And I'd be lying if I said that, sometimes I still didn't do multiple sessions, but
Yeah.
it's not it's not just to do more stuff. You know what I mean? Sorry, I kind of got
Yeah.
on a you caught me monologuing there for a sec.
No, I love it, and I think that's the point, right? I think that's so much about what this idea behind Sojourn is saying, "Hey, how can we take this and expand that territory and, like, really embrace that last sentence of learn and play new sports?" Because I think you nailed it. A lot of people look at that as just an exclamation point, or they kinda sweep it under the rug and like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, but, like, that's not gonna get me to the CrossFit Games." And I wanna say, "I know, and that's the point." Like, that's the yeah, you're not gonna go to the CrossFit Games if you wanna go ride your dirt bike twice a week and downhill mountain bike twice a week and go on ski trips. Like, if you wanna win the CrossFit Games, I'm telling you right now, that's a bad recipe. You need to have completely, selfish lifestyle and biased programming toward doing that, and that's just the way that it is, right? There's no
Hmm.
balance when you wanna be the best in the world at something. But assigning that to yourself might not be appropriate. Maybe it is. Maybe like you're going for it. Then buckle up and have the unbalanced life, right?
Yeah,
But if not, man, I just feel like there's so many ways that you can express fitness and build the capacity where those balance each other out, where we say, hey, we've got this great training program and it's supporting this stuff outside the gym that I want to do. And this stuff outside the gym that I want to do is supporting my training program. And I think that lets us look at training a little bit differently, maybe a different intensity, maybe pulling some movements off the table that don't have value to us anymore. Maybe biasing our training a little bit just because we want to and because it sounds fun. All that stuff is okay.
totally, totally. And what's funny is that I'm at a place in my life where I'm overwhelmed by all the different experiences and things that I could pursue. And I think like 10 years ago, I was kind of lacking in creativity, or I was just like super excited about the pursuit of work capacity in general.
Yeah.
But now about to turn 40, it's like, oh my gosh, there's all these things that I hope I have enough time in my life to like go have adventures on and learn new skills and do these different things. And so, man, I hope that this stuff that we're saying, and to be honest, a big reason of doing this is just that we can kind of plant our little flag and say, hey, is there anybody else that feels this way, or are we the only ones? And so it's not, I want to say that this is less like a lecture where we don't care if people participate. It's just, hey, let me just tell you what I think. And it's more like a sermon, what we're doing. It's more like, hey, don't don't you also feel this way? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's not a podcast. Maybe we're just doing a sermon. A
Self-reflection.
a 40-year-old, 15+ year CrossFit enthusiast
Yeah.
sermon on how to navigate your life.
Yeah, but don't you think that there are people that are in their 20s thinking this? There's gotta be, right?
They're
Like,
and they're
I
probably
wasn't.
smarter. Yeah, they're smarter and more self-actualized than we are,
Yeah,
for
and,
sure.
like, is there I sometimes, because I think it boils down a little bit to personality. Like you and I said,
Mhm.
we're kinda all or nothing people, and I've learned over time that if I'm not real careful about that, that can lead down to the wrong path.
Mm. Mhm.
So, I love, like I said, downhill mountain biking, but I've never raced my mountain bike downhill. I don't know that I ever will. And every time I'm at a race, I'm like, "Ooh, that looks fun." But it's a slippery slope for me, man.
Mhm.
Because then that could turn into the same thing that we're talking about, where it's just completely all about that, right? And let's use that as an analogy. Riding bikes, there's what I love about bikes is there's so many different avenues, right? I mean, you've got BMX biking, which has a bunch of different stuff, which could be like, riding in a skate park. It could be riding dirt jumps. It could be riding street. You have road biking, which is, everyone in their spandex and getting out in the Peloton. You
Mhm.
have dirt jumping, which is scary and technical and cool. And you have cross country. And then you have what they call enduro. You have
Mhm.
downhill. You have, I think they call it what do they call it now? Some people call stuff upduro, where it's like super technical climbs, right? What? So if I were to go and say, "Hey, I love downhill mountain biking," and suddenly I take it down the path of all I'm going to do is ride my bike downhill fast. I want to be the best at that. It suddenly narrows my scope of riding bikes. And while all those pieces can contribute to it, I get narrowed. Some of the best downhill riders I've ever seen, it's offensive how fast they are. And what I love to see is their background and how they embrace all the other sides. So, depending on the time of year, they're dirt jumping and they're on their BMX bike, and control of a small bike helps them on their big bike. And some of these riders have really embraced like this full comprehensive expression of riding, even though they might enjoy this one thing a
Mm.
little bit more, right? And I think the same thing can happen in, especially I look again, the bikes, like I want to be able to express that in different ways and not get stuck with, well, I'm just going to get good at riding my bike downhill fast. Well, no, I want to try to get better on my BMX bike. And even though I suck at it, I instantly see the transfer of that on my dirt jumper. And when my dirt jumping feels better, I feel better on my bigger bike. And when my bigger bike feels better, it's just like it all contributes. But if we get so pigeonholed, we can just miss out on that expression. Same thing on the
Yeah.
fitness side.
Yeah. And I think to, talk philosophically for just a sec, it comes down to when you compete in something, it's to say I can't find meaning in this unless I take it all the way to the extreme. And I think that you can have a different definition of purpose and worth and meaning when you say, man, it's the accumulation instead of going as deep as you possibly can with something. It's like how can you find meaning in the breadth of something, in the horizontal, comprehensive, model means to be a biker. And that's cool to hear that other people that have never done a thruster are trying to solve the same thing that we're talking about too.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can share this because I think this conversation happens elsewhere too. I gotta see if I can find this post. Like you guys, if you haven't figured it out, I really like riding bikes. Um, but there's a guy that posted this. His name is Braden Burnquist, I think, and he put up a post. It was really cool, and he's talking about how actually. Um,
Do you
Racing.
do you know how to share your screen?
Yeah, I gotta find
Okay.
it though. I'm looking right now through and trying to find a post that he put up because it was just like so cool and it kind of had this little epiphany for me, I think, of like, oh my gosh, like this guy's having the same conversation, but he's doing it um in the mountain biking realm. I can't find it.
This guy right here,
Hang on,
is that
Oh,
him?
dude, please come on. Okay, while I'm looking for this, let's just own it. Both of us. Okay. I mean, both of us mid 40s, right? Well, you're not. I'm almost 43. You're almost 40. When do you turn
Yeah,
40?
in June.
Okay, so let's just own this right now. Okay, you are obligated as a parent to introduce your kids to movies that they may otherwise not watch. One of those is what? What did you just show everyone?
Rad.
Oh my gosh. If you it's but is it the only BMX movie ever created?
I don't know, but it still holds up. In they say there's like a few things that you can talk to with people that it establishes like rapport. It's like if you talk about kids or the weather, but I found that with guys from generation, if you bring up rad and you like it, then I know that we can move forward in our in our relationship.
If you don't know what it is, it's only going so far.
And
Right?
dude, it still holds up. Yeah, but you're totally right. Now, I have found that some of these movies that I think are like totally appropriate for like a 5-year-old
Oh, dude.
are not, it's like Goonies has some language in it that I like
Right?
completely forgot about. Back to the Future, it's like it's not
Yeah.
quite as clean. PG means something different in my mind than it meant in
Do you
like
know
'85.
do you know why I think that that is? I think in our generation there was no PG-13. It
Oh,
was
that's
like
right.
PG and R. And I
That's
thought the
right.
same thing. I was like, "Oh my gosh,
There's a lot of
like
gray area.
whoa, yeah, I forgot about this. No wonder I'm the kind of person I am today. Jeez." But like, okay, name a couple others. Give us a couple other movies that you absolutely have to introduce your kids to.
Well,
Goonies, you
from
said one, right? I think
Goonies,
that's it. Yeah. What else?
Princess Bride is very popular in my family.
Oh man, I
Hmm.
forgot about that one.
Yeah,
Andre the Giant, dude.
it's so good. It's
I've
so good, and it still holds
okay.
up, and it's like hilarious as an adult. But like the girls are like, when you watch it as an adult, you're like, man, their swords are like rubber, and it's like kind of hilarious. But when you're a kid, it's like this is the greatest sword fight of all time. That's
100%.
that's a really good one. How about you? What's
Um,
something that?
so I would say there's that one that maybe it's a little bit newer, The Sandlot,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, well, we watched that with you. We watched that with you guys when we were up in
So
Moab.
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
so Sandlot. Another one that's maybe a little bit less known is Harry and the Hendersons. Do you remember this?
absolutely. But I haven't seen that since I was a kid.
I feel like that's a great one
I know
too.
what movie night is tonight.
I know. What else you got?
Man,
Rad,
well,
obviously.
we tried Back to the Future, and he's like, "You bastards!" And so we had to. I was like,
Like,
"Oh,
whoa.
well, we'll save that for for later."
Oh
Um,
man, that's great. And oh, and of course, so those of you guys that grew up wrestling, how about Vision Quest? Have you seen Vision Quest? If not, I won't
I
hold it against you.
I never have. I know that name, but I can't. I'd be lying if I said like I had any frame of reference for what it is.
Understand, because I mean, here's the deal: is like Vision Quest is not a popular movie, but if you grew up wrestling, it is potentially like it's like one of the only wrestling movies ever. So,
Oh my gosh,
um, it's pretty awesome. Well,
I'll
I
have to
can't
check
find this
that
thing,
out.
but yeah. So Vision Quest, Harry and the Hendersons, Sandlot, Princess Bride's top notch. I didn't think of that. Um,
That's a good one.
well, anyway, what this guy Braden was saying is, let's see. Now that we're back on track, and I couldn't find it, I think it's Braden, but they were talking about how they grew up racing bikes, And since then, they don't race bikes. They are professional bike riders, which is really cool. It's what they do for a living. They develop content, and they talked about how still hearing like the beep before the gate drop gives them this anxiety and
Mm,
nervousness, and they are so thankful to have kind of gone through that process
mhm,
and to be able to express their style of riding and their love for riding bikes without the pressure of performance. And I was like, man, that sounds like where so many people need to be on a daily basis when they walk in the gym. Is like, hey, you know what? I really am not concerned about my performance, and I'm going to be
mhm.
here for the experience. And of course, there's benefit to it. Of course, you're getting stronger, increasing your cardiovascular endurance. I mean, we can nerd out on the fitness side, right?
Yeah.
Um, in the physiological side, and there's benefits there that translate. But mentally, on that side, what if people walked in the gym every day, not nervous about the workout, not worried about what they saw on their post the night before,
Mhm.
and we're just there to enjoy the process and be able to critically think through, hey, maybe if I change these things, it will create a better experience for me. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what Sojourn is, right?
Yeah. Uh, so along the way, as you and I have been having this conversation, we thought, man, maybe there's an opportunity to create um, some resources, things you could read, even ways that you could make better decisions as you come into the gym. And so we spent some time and quite a bit of work trying to put some videos together where it's you and I, waxing poetic and very intelligently about this process. But I'm gonna let me share my screen and see if I can pull up not
Don't
rad.
change it. Rad. Don't change it.
um, yeah, but this website now, as we're looking at this together, um, everything on here is, and some of the thought process is that, man, the stuff that us with CrossFit was also free when we got into it, and so we did some if this happens where yeah, it's different. This is like taking a really long time to load. There's different videos of us. There we
There
go.
you go.
Chatting through. Yeah, when you come to the gym, it's not inherently your workout should look like. We don't sometimes know if we should burn it down with something high intensity or if metaphorically we should downshift just a bit or be in a place where like you were saying, Chris, it's enjoyable, things are in a higher degree of control, but we leave the gym unscathed versus like worse for the wear and having to recover. So yeah, we mentioned this not because you and I are really going to get anything out of this, except that we could potentially like give to those that are in the same boat as us, or even gym owners that are looking for the next thing to evolve their own program. So there's PDFs you can download and different things like that, and we hope that it's a resource that has some value to it. So that's kind of the when we keep saying sojourn, like there is a technical place that somebody could go, but there's uh there's no tricks here. This isn't a Tony Robbins webinar where at the end it's like, and for 1999 you too can have your life changed. It's there at sojourn.fitness, and yeah, we'll probably in these upcoming conversations have more information on there, and maybe refer back to that. But tell them what the word sojourn means, because Chris is the one that came up with that.
Yeah, so it's actually like a word you stumble across somewhat frequently in the Old Testament, believe it or not. And it's this concept of wandering but not being lost. Um,
Mm, isn't that
and
beautiful?
I
God,
love
that's
it.
good.
And it's also this concept of staying somewhere for a short period of time where you might not be permanently, but you're still welcome there. Um, and I was just like, man, it's just I think we need to embrace some of that with our fitness again. right?
Dude,
Is,
and
hey,
I think that's the original notion of CrossFit. And that's what
yeah,
I'm so stoked about is, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but like
no,
it just made me so excited to hear you say that. Like to have these temporary stays, and it's like I'm not a mountain biker, but I'd love to train like that for, 8, 12 weeks and then
yeah,
go on to the next thing. And I think somehow like our identity becomes this one thing, but I think going back to the roots of this thing that we are professionals in, it was never designed to just do that one thing over and over again. So I hope that we can unpack that and have lots more conversations around that.
yeah. I mean, I think that's it. That's it. I think that's very much of our vision and what we want to help share and maybe inspire people to, and just give yourself, like we said earlier, a little bit of permission to let it be that and not feel so obligated to do another couplet tomorrow and in hopes that you PR based off of some arbitrary thing after 10 or 15 years.
That's right. And so I think that's the point. I mean, this is a weekly sermon that you you and I will have. We're thinking, Thursdays at 11 Central, 10 Mountain Time. Um, we hope to bring some different friends on that we know are in a similar position as we are. One of the cool things about having a live stream is that instead of it being a lecture that you listen to recorded, it's a live conversation and interaction. Some of the things Chris and I have talked about that we'd like to do is actually show how you might have a temporary stay in enduro bike riding or powder skiing or backcountry work or jujitsu or whatever, and to actually demystify some of the stuff that I think isn't quite as concrete as the sport of fitness, but to empower and encourage you guys that it's not impossible to participate in. And yeah, who knows? Maybe some stuff around being a gym owner, and if that's the hat that you wear, to be a place of encouragement that isn't a playbook, but is actually like a real conversation with real people on things that you may be struggling with. And I think moral of the story, we're not Luke Skywalker, just a couple of Obi-Wan Kenobis.
That's it. Yeah. And leave us questions. Let us know. If you have any, drop stuff in the comments. I think sometimes that's where the greatest content comes from is people chiming in, sharing in the conversation, or ask us questions. I don't think it, yeah, this is very unedited. So wherever we want it to go, or I guess the audience wants it to go, is very much where we can take it.
All right, well, great job.
Yeah. Way to go, Spencer. One down.
All right, so if you see this, it'll be the first one on the channel. And once again, we hope that you'll use that resource, sojourn.fitness. Join us live. I think that would be really fun for us. And I think the more we can gather around this little flag that we've planted, the better, to know that we're not the only weirdos that feel this way. So until next time.